Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. We're excited today because we're going to get to talk a little bit about a special food group that's kind of continuing to sweep the country in popularity. So we have a couple of experts with us today. One's a Food Fanatic live chef from our Bensonville division, and the other is a valued customer of ours. So I'll let them take a second and just introduce themselves, give you a little bit about their background, and then we'll get into hearing from them about modern Mexican cuisine. You're up. Yep.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming up and joining us today, Modern Mexican. My name is Mariela Bolaños. I'm the Food Fanatic chef for Chicago. I've got quite a bit of different type of background, some fine dining, some upscale casual comfort food, both corporate and individually owned restaurants, so I've got a little bit of everything. I love fusion food. That's what I'm all about.
Cool. Thank you. Chef Diana.
Hi, everyone. How's it going? I know everybody loves Mexican food, right? Yes. Come on, let's feel excited.
Wow. Does everybody love Mexican food? Yay. Hey.
So my name's Diana. I'm the chef owner of Mi Tocaya in Logan Square, Chicago. I did not get completely trained as a chef, just kind of worked my way around kitchens, worked at, never actually worked in a Mexican restaurant other than my parents, and kind of had a sort of an awakening of, I'm like, you know what? Like maybe 3 years ago, I'm like, this is the food that I was born to cook. And now, 3 years later, I just opened my restaurant, and I'm just here kind of to share my story and answer any questions about la comida mexicana that everybody loves so much.
Cool. Right. So we're going to start with you, Chef. So give us your version of modern Mexican cuisine.
I think I've been reading a lot of articles on that, and some people, and I've met those type of people that are from Mexico, and you make a taco, and you start adding all of these different ingredients, aiolis and pickled this, pickled that, and different meat, and tempura, fried shrimp, and they're like, this is not a taco. So I think modern Mexican food is just our spin on ingredients from Mexico, traditional salsas and moles and preparations with our own modern twist. That's what I would consider, right? With local ingredients, of course.
Yeah, I think that, anything, it's always important to evolve. So I think that first and foremost, you always have to have a foundation before you start getting creative. So it's understanding what Mexican cuisine is super, super rich, super, super vast. Mexico is a very large country, and there's many ways of doing things according to what grows there, where you're at, the regions. And so for here in the States, I think it's important to kind of understand that foundation before we start getting super creative. But just like anything, modern Mexican food is evolving. How can you take that original, well, nothing's really original, but take the beginning of what your grandmother and aunts were making and making it relevant to do you live and what sort of story you want to tell with food.
So let's talk a little bit about your restaurant, Chef, and the story that you're telling. And then I want to ask you a little bit, too, about your customers and how do you blend the American diners.
We call them guests.
Good answer. How do you blend the guest choices, especially from American into Mexican food? But first, a little bit about your restaurant.
So our restaurant, it's a antojeria. So antojeria is just like there's cafes, there's bistros, it's a style of restaurant. A antojeria is a restaurant that serves antojos. Antojos are medium nostalgic Mexican dishes. Dishes that just the way like American comfort food would be, mac and cheese, variations on that. So take that, but into Mexican culture. So super shareable, lively, casual, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, things that you're always going to crave. So that's an antojeria. And that's the style of place I wanted to open instead of just, a street style place or focusing on street style food or just focusing on tacos, It was a way that I thought that I could share what I wanted to share through my culture and through, I view myself as an artist as well. What I wanted to share with people, that was the best platform to open up a antojeria. So we have lots of antojos to kind of get these shots of what it must have been like to lamb meatballs in a home style way of what we used to have growing up in Mexico. So that's the style of place. What was the second part? I forgot. I talked a lot.
The second question is how you getting the normal American guest to kind of embrace that and try new and different things?
I think it starts with hospitality, because everybody is always going to have, depending where they live, what they've done. Some people have vacationed a lot in Mexico. Some people have worked in places that have, like Chicago, there's a huge Mexican population. So I think it starts with hospitality when you're inviting people and letting them know that, welcome, letting them know what your concept is. Kind of from the get-go being like, we're an antojeria, get a little bit of this is a little bit of that. So then they can kind of know, get a feel for what to expect. And it's our job really to let them know what we want to share with them. There's two parts of it where I feel like people are always like, oh, customer is always right. Customer's like, it's not that's not the kind of place that we are. It's not like that. To me, we're doing something where we want to share this with people. It's our job to make them feel comfortable, let loose, and kind of let any sorts of premonitions of what they think or Mexican food is, and also grow on. We have a huge Mexican clientele and just Latino clientele that are like, oh, this cactus still reminds me of what mi abuela used to make. These are, enchiladas I've only gotten from San Luis, so it's really nice to reach people in that regard too. I think, so hospitality is really, really important. It's not like, well, you don't know what, it's just gearing people up to make sure that they're ready to partake in this experience,
Cool, thank you. From your perspective, working in some interesting restaurants, you think about modern day Mexican, but it probably applies to everything. What are some of the flavors and trends that you've witnessed over the last X number of years in cooking?
I feel like I've seen a lot more ceviches come out on menus. Everybody's doing a ceviche, but can they do it right? It's the preparation of it, marinating it. I see a lot of places that like to boil their shrimp versus curing it in lime or any kind of acid and salt. If I go to a place and they don't make it properly, I can tell. And that turns me off. It turns me off, and it's like, it could have been so much better. And that's what I think ceviches, instead of them just being with one kind of fish or just shrimp, now people are doing it with scallops. They're just putting their own twists on it. So you go maybe to an Asian restaurant and they might put yuzu in it. They're putting their own modern twists on it, and like I said, using local ingredients. And I think that's one thing that's been booming, and everybody knows what it is now. It's not just something that, what's ceviche? Everybody now knows ceviche. Even doing, I talk about Rick Bayless a lot. He's doing twists on guacamole. Putting all kinds of roasted red pepper. You would never think, you don't go to Mexico and you get a guacamole, it doesn't have all that stuff on it, but people here are modernizing it because everybody knows what it is. It doesn't just have to be avocado. You're throwing roasted pineapple in there, pumpkin seeds, you throw feta cheese, you can do a Greek version of guacamole, you can do anything. And that's what I like about this city especially, is that everybody, there's so many different chefs. You can be a Michelin star chef and still be able to produce a nice fine dining guacamole, or even like I was talking about moles earlier, you can do your own twist on a mole. As long as the flavors are there, it's fantastic. There's so many different types of moles that you don't have to make it exactly following that recipe. I've done it before, and some people don't have the luxury of being able to put, what's the most amount of ingredients the moles get?
About 35.
35. Maybe I don't have access to that, or, depending on my food costs, you can work with other nuts, different seeds. So much stuff you can do. Just add a twist to it. That's what I would do.
Cool, perfect. So if you think about...
I have an inside tip on ceviche, y'all. You heard it from here. So you can, what makes a really, really, really tasty good ceviche is actually ceviche is actually a Peruvian, first was a Peruvian thing, and they really kind of perfected. You brine your fish or whatever you're going to use first before just dousing it in whatever acid you want. It's going to break down the protein, it's going to perfectly season it, and then after that, you just get the beautiful acidity of whatever acid you choose. But brining for at least 6 hours really makes the difference.
And what's the
Insider's
ratio?
tip.
What's the ratio typically of acid to water or other seasonings?
So acid to whatever, like I would do, so you always want to completely submerge it because, it's going to expand and then it's just going to take away, so I would do a 1-to-2 ratio when you're going to lime it. And same thing with brining, like you're going to want to go 1-to-2 on liquid to mass. And that's where the famous leche de tigre comes in, because after you're done brining it, salt and water, salt releases extracts the moisture from the fish, and then you take a little bit of that brine and then a little bit of what comes out of the fish after you're done with the acid, with lime, and that's your leche de tigre. Use that for vinaigrettes or for your Bloody Marys.
Perfect. So I have another question for you, Chef, if I could. What's your number one seller today, and what was it a couple, 3 years ago?
What's my number one seller? Right now, it's our fish con mole. So we have mole is not typically traditionally served with fish. And I remember telling my mom, I'm like, I'm going to have fish con mole. And she's like, Diana, that doesn't make any sense. You have some good ideas, but this one is not good. And then she came in and ate it, and it was a mole verde. And she came in and ate it, and she's like, I got to give it to you. It works. Because mole verde is one of the 7 traditional moles from Oaxaca. And it's very herbaceous, lots of seeds, no nuts, seeds, which really, really actually pair really nice with a piece of fish. So I proved my mom right.
Has that changed over the years? The popularity on the menu?
What, proving my mom right? Or
No. That goes back to your teenage years, right? No, just thinking about how Mexican and Latin food has evolved.
Again, like kind of something that that she was touching base, which, there's part of why Mexico has all these, every kind of town does things differently is because of what they grow right there. And, here in the Midwest, we grow a lot of things. There's sunflowers, there's pecans, there's walnuts. And so if you're going to go and you're going to make a mole and you need to sub something, what better, to sub it with something that grows here. And that's how, that to me is a really perfect evolution of what that first mole started off being.
Cool. How about from your perspective? Things that you've seen evolve over time from flavors. I know you talked about ceviche, but anything else that comes to mind that you've seen evolve?
I mean, everything. Almost, I've seen.
That could take a while. Everything.
I mean, not everything, but I mean, it's taco. Yeah, like she said, tacos themselves, and you can do you can do anything. You can take anything and add a Mexican twist to it. You can be working in a fine dining restaurant, or you can be working in an upscale gastropub, or even going to lunch and doing a burger. My gosh, there's so many things that you can do with Mexican
Those
ingredients.
flavors, right?
It's just all about how you execute it, the recipe. It has to be done right. You can't just say, oh, well, this is, making a chipotle aioli, just even if that's basic, but yeah. Al Pastor burger would be the bomb, but it has to be done right. That's the only key. You have to know the recipes. I take the original recipes and I look them over and I say, what can I do and add my own twist to it? If I don't have this available, how can I just incorporate something from Chicago into it? And then what can I pair it with? And then have people taste it. Do you think this is a good idea? Yeah, sure. Yeah. And then just add to it, and then that's how you create a recipe, I think. I mean, is that what you do?
Pretty much, yeah.
Cool. So another question on your guests. What do you see in terms of them evolving and expecting when they come to your restaurant today? Anything changed over time?
Well, I think that when you're a diner, you should go to expect a good meal. And that's what I think that every diner can expect and hope for. It's not, and that's what we want our diners to expect. We don't want somebody to come in and be like, or I know Mexican food. You know, everybody, it's a constant, like I've been, you know, professionally cooking for how long? I was brought up in a family that had taquerias. I've traveled a lot. And I still will be like, I'm never going to walk into a Mexican restaurant and be like, I know Mexican food. You know what I mean? Like, so I think that anytime as diners, you have to kind of try to have an open mind and be able to experience. And that's kind of the stuff, that's what we artfully do with our guests at Mi Tocaya.
Cool. So one last question for both of you. What's the biggest challenge today in your world?
Well, as a chef owner, I would say is knowing that you cannot do it all. And that's not just with employees, with, you know, everything that, like, I think that it's difficult to be a chef owner because, you know, you want to control the dining, you want to control, of course, like everybody's always like, I want to make this from scratch. I'm making this from scratch. Well, guess what? You kind of have to pick your battles. You're not going to be able, you have to kind of prioritize what you can make from scratch and grow from there. Like, what is the most important? Like, to me, it was very important to have the sauces. The sauces, to me, are the backbone of Mexican food. And then the meat that we're going to do, like if we're doing our al pastor, to do it in the truest fashion that we can with what we have. I don't have $2,000 to spend on a spit, you know, so you have to kind of get creative on how you're going to do that. So choosing what you could make from scratch and what you can't, and it's okay. You know, you could always let's get some cash flow going first, and you could always grow into doing more. You have cooks to train, you have servers to train, you have the business to run, so I mean, prioritizing what you could do best, controlling those costs, and then growing in everything else, you know. But I mean, you need to kind of prioritize that and align yourself. I mean, one of the things we don't make on Sundays we do a dish called chicken and churros. I mean, everybody's kind of heard of chicken and waffles. Well, we're Mexicanizing it and we're like, ditch the waffles, bring on the churros, because everybody loves them, and it makes perfect sense. And that's a service where I can't have somebody come in 4 hours just to make the churros from scratch. We buy the U.S. Foods churros, and they're great. We do our own, you know, cinnamon sugar. It's prioritizing. It's something that we could put in the freezer. Sometimes people have bad connotations about freezers too, which makes no sense. Like, you know, it's a preservation technique. If it's done right, it's perfect. So we use U.S. Foods churros to get us where we need to be, and it's a good product. And it's like, that's a perfect example of prioritizing what you're good at, what your strong points are. I don't have a pastry chef, and I'm not going to spend 5 hours of my day nailing this down for one service.
Perfect. And how about from your perspective?
For me, really quick.
Yes. So you're not that far removed from a restaurant.
No. So 3 months ago, I was still working in a kitchen or in a restaurant. And I found the biggest challenge for me, and because there are customers here, you guys are mostly owners, right? I'm assuming owners of restaurants. It's very important to educate your servers. I would put, you know, like I like the Latin twist on my food, and they'll see something like I'm making a dish tomorrow. I'm doing bao buns at the Millennium Park, Chefs on the Grill, and I'm doing steamed bao buns with our superfood slaw, tamarind dressing, grilled duck breast. I'm doing salsa macha, and I did some research on that, but I'm doing my own version of it. Smoked chipotles, not in a can. And so if I had a server, what guest is asking, what is salsa macha? It's a spicy sauce. Well, you know, that's not enough information. It's important for chefs or for the owners, depending if you're a chef owner, to write the recipes down, at least make a binder, make a book. Sometimes with photos help. And educating and pre-shift every day, tasting. Well, what's in this? How can I explain this to my guests if they have a question? Because that's how you sell. People can't just by reading it, okay, well, that looks good, so I guess I'll have that. It really makes a difference, and so that's why I always used to stress on my servers, you have to know this information, but you have to supply them with the tools to do their job properly. And U.S. Foods has all
multiple
of those tools.
for
My
that.
God, now I'm learning. I'm still in training, guys, and I'm just seeing all of this stuff that's available. I'm like, wow, I wish I would have had that, or at least knew about it. So those are my 2 cents on that. on the topic.
Fantastic. Well, the servers ultimately become the face of the restaurant, the brand, and the salespeople as well. So certainly important. So thank you, ladies, for taking some time. I know you're both extremely busy. So how about a big round of applause for the chefs for joining us today? I think they did a terrific job.